Hello. We're all coming back from the COVID virus, so let's try and do it together safely. These are a few tips that we have from one community shop in Fareham. First of all, you'll notice that I've only got one door open, so people cannot stay 2 meters apart. But the first thing I would do is to open up both doors and create a much wider entranceway. That's the first tip for today. The second tip is you'll notice that we have an area here where people will congregate. They will touch the jigsaw, maybe items that we're selling that are not our main purpose for being here. So we are going to remove the jigsaw. We're going to remove all seats that would allow people to sit and chat and create a kind of cluster of people which must at all times be avoided. So this whole area we will clear. We also have items of craft that people have made. These are not our main purpose. Our main purpose is to be here to help and support people. So we will clear all of this area to make it much wider and more accessible and giving people more space. If you do have to have items out in order to survive, and that's your reason for being here, then obviously if anyone picks this up and puts it back, it's going to have to be quarantined. Now I would recommend that you quarantine anything like this for 72 hours. So how you do that and how you rotate that will obviously depend on your space and also your volunteer numbers, but that's something to think about. The other thing you can notice that we have in the shop is we have quite a lot of different seating areas. These all have to be removed. And one thing to note, if you've got volunteers coming in and they want to obviously have a chat, they can have a seat, but their seats must be 2 meters apart. Okay? If you have a counter area and your counter area cannot be removed and you know that customers will come to that counter area, you must have a shielding screen out of Perspex in order to protect your volunteers and obviously your staff. We'll come back to a little bit more about PPE shortly. If you have leaflets or catalogues or newsletters as part of your service, obviously you don't want to remove them completely because you still want to hold that message out and give people the information they need. What I would recommend, and obviously it depends on the service you're doing, is to remove them from people to be able to browse and pick them up, but have them in an area where a volunteer can provide that information when required in a safe way. You cannot monitor leaflets and flyers easily, and as I say, you cannot quarantine them easily. So have them where somebody can pass them just as like that. Many of you will have a similar problem as we have here at One Community, in that our facilities are upstairs and our tea and coffee facilities as well are out the back of this door. So how do we know that there is a volunteer or a member of staff out there when the door is closed? Because it has to be closed for fire regulations. What we are going to do, and I suggest you think about this as an option, is have a lanyard here with a sign on it to say that there is a no entry sign or a stop sign or whatever you decide to use. So as a volunteer needs the toilet or wants to make a cup of tea, they will know by looking at that area is engaged. They cannot enter, so therefore they must stay 2 meters away from this door. However, if of course there is a clear vacant label, then they know that they can go outside and use the facilities safely. When they come back, your staff and volunteers will obviously want a cup of tea or coffee. We recommend that they bring their own cup, they clean their own cup and they take their own cup home with them. In most cases they would understand and they would be happy to do that. What other things do they use during the day? Pen. Ask them to bring their own pen, use their own pen and no one else's. And also if they answer the phone for you in your service, or they make a phone call for you in your service, it does need wiping when they have finished using it. And that will bring us nicely onto what is PPE. So, what is PPE? You keep hearing about it. Let me show you what PPE is around the volunteer support side. You'll see I'm wearing a sneeze shield. These are really valuable if you are talking to somebody who is in distress or who you need to speak to on a close in a close proximity, but you don't have the ability to have one of those very large screens. I highly recommend that your volunteers are provided with one of these. They do need to have their own one and they must not be shared. They are washable. Most of them are washable, and so the volunteer can use it day after day after day. They usually come in a pack like this, and you can buy them online, or if you ask One Community on email, we can tell you where we get ours from. Hand gel, very important to be used all the time. They need to use this when obviously dealing with any form of connection with the general public, and have it where they can use it at their own need. Face masks, usually they are disposable. They are pretty hard to find, but again, if you ask us, we may have some contacts for them. But you do need your volunteers to have one of these each per day. These are the disposable ones, which I recommend are the safest. These gloves are usable really for any kind of item that's being passed across to and from the general public. And most importantly, wipes, antibacterial wipes to cover all surfaces. So this would be things like desktops, phones that we mentioned earlier, banisters, door handles, anything like that, desk drawer handles. So you need to have a kind of thorough idea of when they have been wiped and checked, which we'll come to in a minute. One of the things we've done is obviously a very thorough risk assessment of the information centre, and we have got a template for that, which we can email to you if you require it. Obviously we'll come back to that shortly. Another thing that I just want to mention at this point is that when your volunteers go to the toilet or they wash their cups and saucers, they must not use tea towels or towels. They must have kitchen rolls or that kind of disposable tissue. And that also applies when they are cleaning for you on any of the areas across the shop, community centre, wherever you're using. Something like a disposable all-purpose cloth is ideal, with obviously your antibacterial sprays. Now what we have done is instigated a cleaning rota where we are cleaning every couple of hours on the areas where the general public have access, and every day in the areas where just the volunteers and staff have access. So, and again, it's about looking at your individual placement. So what you can do is have that on your risk assessment, which, as I said, you can have a copy from One Community. The other thing, of course, is depending on the service you're doing, some of your volunteers may have to have aprons, disposable aprons or gowns if they are caring for people with particular needs. That obviously is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about shop volunteers or community centre volunteer environments. What I would like to say at the end is that you can email us for any questions or queries. We are more than happy to support you in your reopening queries, problems, questions, whatever you may have. And at the end of this video, you'll see the correct contact details for us and where you can get a copy of a risk assessment template. Be safe.